Bake Off fans, it's Jack here at Bake... Hold on a minute, that's a mess, isn't it? Hold on. Hey Bake Off fans, it's Jack here at bakewithjack.co.uk, bringing you a weekly digest of the Bake Off. All the things that go through my head that are related to the Bake Off. And this is what I bring you in these lovely videos. And if you're new here, hiya, welcome. I'm going to kick off now because it was Bread Week this week. And this week, you may have heard me on the radio. Yes, that's right, I was on BBC Radio Surrey. I got invited on there to have a little chat about Bread Week. And if you heard me on there, I got the hump, okay? I got the hump. Now, I haven't watched back last year's video, but I believe I got the hump about Bread Week, and I'll tell you why. Underproved breads, doughy in the middle, underbaked. These are all different words for you didn't give them enough time. Yeah? The wicked thing about the Bake Off this year is that there are advert breaks. And I'm not telling you that because I love adverts. I'm telling that because I can make a cup of tea or I can make a little video when I've got the hump and stick it out on Twitter, which is exactly what I did. And if you saw that, yeah, you know what I'm going to talk about. There was not enough time. Okay, you can't rush the bread making process. I teach people how to make bread. This is what I do, okay? And I go to other people's houses and we do it in all sorts of environments and it always comes out lovely. However, if you're given a tight time scale, you got to do bad stuff to the dough to make sure it's ready on time. For example, pop it in a proving drawer, stick it into the oven, find a warm space, wrap it up in a bin liner and blow it up to puff it up like a balloon, stack stuff on top of each other on rackers stackers so they don't stick to one another when you're trying to do all this stuff. Seriously, I see Jan doing things, unspeakable things. I see Stephen doing unspeakable things as well, but it's neither of those people's fault. In fact, it's nobody's fault. The fault lies with the people who are making the competition. Yes, I understand that the whole time limit thing is a bit tricky and you got to get stuff done within the time limit, but good bread is made out of time. Love and patience and time. Okay? If you take the time out of the operation, the bread's going to be rubbish. Nobody can make good tea cakes in that time. That's why we saw doughy, underbaked tea cakes that did not have enough time. We saw crinkly buns. We saw all this stuff because it didn't have enough time. And in the Cottage Loaf round, oh my good grief, it was even worse. Doughy loaves, sunken, saggy breads, all because you've got to speed it up, warm it up, change the temperature. All this stuff has a negative effect on your dough and all you've got to do is leave it on the side, on the table, give it a little bit of love. Everything at room temperature and everything puffs up. Lovely. And I'll tell you what, I'll prove it. Cottage Loaf. Boom, this is my Cottage Loaf. Hello Cottage Loaf. Yeah, I love that little bit where it all crackles in the middle. It is wicked. This is my Cottage Loaf I made today. Proved it out on the side at room temperature and it will come up lovely. Had I been in a hurry, had I been trying to speed it up, it would have been floppy and doughy and not very nice indeed. It would not have worked. The principle has gone out the window, okay? That is the whole principle of the bread making process, is the time. Take the time out, may as well be game over. That's better, isn't it? Do you feel better? I feel better now. I think what it is for me is if I was on the Bake Off, I would have never been able to make nice bread. Bread that I was pleased with and bread that I was proud of and bread to show off that what I can do. Because we get to the end of the show and we still don't know who can make the bread because everyone's rushed and all the bread's not very good. With a few exceptions. So round number one is the tea cakes round and there was lots of interesting flavours going on. Not that it really mattered because they're all a little bit, I've got written on here, crinkly buns, underbaked, raw, flat, saggy. Tea cakes have got butter in, yeah, and they've got eggs in it and this stuff makes the dough heavy, not to mention the fruit. So butter, eggs and fruit inside a dough makes everything a bit heavier so it takes longer to rise up in the first place. So that's the sort of tricky aspect to deal with then. And egg wash, always egg wash. I think it was Stacey did milk and then at the end she was like, oh, I shouldn't have done milk. But she stuck to her guns and I was pleased with her sticking to her guns because it was questioned and she was like, no, I'm putting milk on it. And then she put milk on it and that's fine. So I'm pleased with that. Nice one, Stacey. Moving on to round 2, the cottage loaf. Now the cottage loaf is tricky, okay? The cottage loaf is tricky because you've got to, I think they didn't know how much to cut off and put onto the top. And when you do put that bit on the top, there's a little bit of a balancing act there. You've got to build the tension, and I've mentioned it in a video before. I think it was called How to Stop Your Loaf of Bread Spreading All Over the Place or something like that. But I've mentioned it before, it's all about tension. Building the tension, making that dome nice and tight across the top evenly. And when you're making a cob loaf, you can make the dough nice and tight across the top unevenly. That's okay, it'll still rise up nice and round. But if you're putting one ball on top of another ball, they've both got to be super even. Otherwise, one's going to go and fall off the top, which happened once. I think it was... whose fell off? Was it Kate the blacksmith? I can't remember. Somebody's fell off the top entirely. Some of them just turned into a bit of like wobbly jellies, and that. But part of that is down to the time anyway, which I think I touched on the time situation a little bit earlier, so I won't go into it again. I would have baked it high temperature. I think my oven goes up to 220, and I would have certainly started it off at 220, crank it up, plenty of steam, 5-10 minutes on 220 is what I did today for that cottage loaf, and then turn it down for the remainder. 40 minutes in total, probably, maybe even 45, just to be on the safe side, make sure nothing sagged when it came out like one of them did. But hey, here come the spoilers if you're waiting for the spoiler warning. Here it is. Third place, Stephen redeemed himself from round 1 Nightmare Tea Cake round. Stephen was third place. Julia was second place, lovely. And Stacey with the milky buns came first. One interesting point in this round that I've written down in quote marks on my clipboard that Flo said, dough has a mind of its own. Yes, it does have a mind of its own. Dough has a mind of its own. It does its own thing. It depends upon temperature of your room, the freshness of your yeast, how well you've looked after it and coaxed it along the way to let it do its own thing. Dough does have a mind of its own, and we've got to react and respond to that to get the best result. That's why nothing worked, because they speed it up. They don't react and respond to it. They try and control that dough. Don't try and control it. Just let it do its own thing. Just show it a little bit of love in between. Round number 3, as always, the showstopper round was all about the bread sculpture. Obviously, it had to be 3 colours. I think it had to be minimum 3 colours. And we all remember the majestic lion made by the lovely Paul Jagger way back in 2015. I think it was 2015, the lion that resurrected itself for the title sequence. And there was a couple of options here what you can do, right? The tricky thing with this one is that those will prove up at different times. You might have a brown one, you might have a white one, you might have one with something weird inside, but they're all going to respond a little bit differently, improve up a little bit differently. So you've got a couple of options. You've got the option to make a whole sculpture, weaving different doughs in and around each other, which I think Flo did. They looked quite effective. And they all proved up together, and you bake the whole structure together. Or you can make separate breads and put them together quite cleverly. And that way you get in control of every dough in the respect that you can bake each one when it's ready, instead of having them all ready at the same time, because that's a big mess in my head, the idea of doing that. I would do it the second way. So a couple of things to mention, like they're all quite showpieces, weren't they? Surely they're all lovely. Stephen made a handbag with a little chain, with a chain on it, with like a bread chain. The lovely Julia made a nice snail. We all enjoyed looking at that snail, didn't we? Surely that went off on Twitter. There was a hashtag trending. I'm not going to say what it was on here because it's just too rude for me to utter on a video like this. It wouldn't be acceptable. But there was a hashtag trending, and I saw a lot of pictures of that snail by the end of the night on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook. There was a lot of that snail. There you go. That was a bit of fun. So to round it off, if you didn't turn off for the spoilers earlier, here comes the big, massive spoiler. And the person who got stitched up on Bread Week and went home was Flo. And this didn't go down too well. If you're on social media and you're following this stuff, a lot of people were very upset for Flo, and so was I. It was a shame to see Flo go. We all like Flo. So Flo has gone, and the star baker was the lovely Julia with that funny looking snail. She did really well. Star Baker, I think Paul was really impressed with her dark rye bread. Next week is week 4. It's caramel week. And yeah, looking forward to that one. It's the first one ever. So everyone loves a bit of caramel, don't they? It's like super sweet and delicious. I've got a proper sweet tooth, I must admit. So listen, my name's Jack and I'm here at Bake with Jack. If you don't know me by now, if you're new, hello to you all. Thanks so much for joining me. And I'm here in England in Surrey and I'm hosting a few bread making workshops. Of course, I'm going to plug a workshop at the end of this video, of course. If you want to make this lovely cottage loaf, you can join me in a workshop. I'm doing a great British bread workshop. We're going to do the cottage loaf, we're going to do tea cakes, and we're going to do English muffins as well. And I might throw in a cheeky scone as well. We have a lovely time. It's an evening workshop and we have some nice supper too. I'll stick a link here somewhere to the website and you can come along. If you want to come along, it would be wicked to see you. Other than that, there's recipes and stuff online on my website, bakewithjack.co.uk, on my blog. There's videos, helpful videos to help you out. And loads of you have been in touch because I had a little short break off the weekly videos. I did a video every Thursday and now I have a little break for a bit. But after this bake-off video diary is finished at the end of the bake-off, I'm going to resurrect it. I'm going to bring it back and bring you some more weekly bread tips because loads of you have been asking about it and asking about me and make sure I'm okay and I'm okay. So I'm going to bring them back very soon after the bake-off, which I'm really excited about. So listen, thank you very much. My name's Jack. I'm here at Bake with Jack. Let me know who's your favourite. Let me know who you're rooting for. Let me know the opposite, who you don't like. And let me know what you thought of that lovely snail. Yeah, that's it. See you next week. Oh, hey, can you pass me a slice of that cottage, please? Yes. Oh, yes. Thank you very much. There's nobody there.